I heard Robert Kiyosaki said to me once, and it sticks with me unlike just about anything I've ever heard, that people can't get out of the way of what they don't see coming. And that's right. The disservice that has been done to the American people by our media um, is borderline treasonous, and all they do these days is just foment divisiveness. I did an interview today, which I found to be very interesting, with a man named Nick Giambruno. And Nick has worked for a long time with Doug Casey. And the one thing that he said that I thought was wickedly interesting, he said, if you go back through history, when you see times of upheaval, times of chaos, it is typically preceded by large movements of gold from one place to another. And that's what's happening right now. Over 40 central banks have repatriated their gold, like you said, from the Bank of England and the New York Fed, and they continue to do so. And then all of the deliveries off of the exchanges. And I mean, there's so much sense and logic in that statement. Is it ominous? I don't know. I mean, you can even go back and look at Roosevelt here when he confiscated gold. My friend Larry, who you know through NCII, Larry is one of the biggest importers of numismatic gold in the world, as far as I know. A lot of it coming from Europe. He has connections, vast connections in Europe. And ask yourself, how is it that so much gold found its way over to Europe by steamship prior to the confiscation? Where all of the elite were clued in, hey, you might want to send your gold over to the safety of the Swiss safe deposit boxes and whatnot. And, some of it was there prior to World War One, or prior to the confiscation anyway, because all debt prior to World War One was settled in gold. But the point of it is that a lot of this stuff comes from the European central banks, where it was shipped over before gold was confiscated. A lot of it stayed there for whatever reason. And a lot of it comes back to this day. But I guess I just would simply say that whether it be a gold confiscation or, you hear a lot about people moving their gold to the United States out of Europe because of potential trouble that's brewing. Well, that's exactly what Nick was saying. And to the nth degree, I would say, if you look at the amount that's come in and the amount that's moved home across the globe, home being to whatever country is repatriating it certainly gives me pause, and I think it's something to pay attention to. Again, it's not about the price; it's about the movements prior to these things happening. And it's funny, all of the purchasing by the central banks, all of the movements, all of the importing, all of this stuff has preceded the massive price increases. So I would just simply say these people know what's coming. They don't spend this kind of money and go to this kind of what amounts to sophisticated maneuvering just for the hell of it, especially something as unconventional, perhaps, in this environment, in this monetary system, as standing for delivery on physical metals.
When you talk about on a larger scale with silver, we're seeing things happen around the globe. Of course, we talked about at length over the last several months how Russia has said, look, we're going to add it to our strategic stockpile. India has been buying silver for 5 years at a clip that really no one's ever seen, somewhere north of 800 million ounces, which would be more than the LBMA has in total, or pretty damn well near what they have in total. We're seeing China, the second largest producer in the world, fly all around South America, in particular Latin America, like Peru, that area, which is the second largest producer, or the third largest producer of silver in the world, is Peru. They've already built a deep water port in Peru, and they're doing lots of trade with them. Well, now they're going directly to the miners in Peru, and they're buying what's called doré and concentrate directly from the miners. And they're paying double what the West will for it. Doré is a crudely refined bar, as you know, and the concentrate is a sludge byproduct of mining. And they'll buy this stuff, pay double what the West will, and ship it back to China for refining. The thing that I take away from that is this is the second largest producer of silver in the world, buying from the third largest producer, but buying directly from the miners, which disintermediates the marketplace. which disintermediates the information flow. How much are they buying? What is that turning into? What are they paying? We know they're paying more than the West, and we know that they're incentivized to ship this unrefined silver halfway around the globe, refine it, which is kind of strange when you think about it coming from the second largest producer of silver in the world, that being China. So it's an interesting situation, to say the least. But what's different, Slayer, about everything else is that the U.S. is now involved and importing copious amounts of it. Who's importing it? Who's responsible for taking delivery of the largest delivery in the history of the COMEX? That's a question that really no one can answer at this point. Well, some can, none of us can. But I think it's don't pay attention to the price, even though the price is going parabolic. Parabolic's not the right word. Let me rephrase it. The price had a parabolic move in a very short period of time. Now, parabolic, that's not even the right word, I guess, the more I think about it. It's up 40% this year.
Right.
It's outpaced all the other metals. So that's not really parabolic, but it's strong. It could be the parabolic move coming that we're all expecting, where it blows through 50 and then keeps on going, just based upon the price ratio of the past 100 plus years, is coming out of the ground at 7-to-1, but it's priced now, it's broken that 100-to-1 ratio level down in the 90s. But if you look at what it's averaged, its price average, literally the last 100 plus years, it's about 45-to-1. So if you take gold right now at 33.30 and divide that by 45, you get $74. Yeah. So silver should be $74 an ounce. Now, that's 6 times higher than it's coming out of the ground at. So 33.30 divided by 7, according to Keith Neumeyer, 475. Now, if you told me silver was $475 an ounce next year, I would say that's pretty damn aggressive. Probably not going to happen. But from a standpoint of its ratio in relation to how much gold versus how much silver is coming out of the ground, I guess it would be a logical statement. But to say that it's priced right now at a 92-to-1 ratio, with the demand that we're seeing, I would say it's the value of a generation. And I think it's just getting going. Now, we'll see what happens here, but I really think we've seen a weekly close above 36. We need to see it close monthly above 36.
Yes.
$35 level. The interesting thing about that $35 level is that there have been, I want to say, 7 breakout attempts. That's right. I wrote this down the other day. 7 breakout attempts at 35 since 2011. They've all failed. The fact that it's broken out above 35 right now is a significant event. And we'll see where it finishes here. We got the Fed numbers coming up and the non-farm payrolls, all of the key pivot points where the players like to suppress and short the price and knock it down. But there's so much physical demand right now that's standing for delivery. It's as stupid as a mud wall to be on the wrong side of this in a naked short position. And I think the traders are figuring that out in gold, as we've seen a tremendous amount of gold covering. Since the beginning of the year, nearly 150,000 COMEX contracts have been covered. That's 15 million ounces of gold. And this is why we see gold continuing to march higher no matter what the news is. Silver will follow it, and it has a very, very similar technical pattern the way that gold has.
Yeah.
In fact, it's
a little more volatile.
45 years long. $3,500 gold is easily in play, right? And a 60-to-1 ratio would be above the 200-year average. And that 60-to-1 ratio at $3,500, you're basically $60 an ounce silver. So these numbers are not unrealistic whatsoever. You put it at $4,000 an ounce, you're at $70 an ounce silver based upon, and that's nowhere near the mining ratio. That's just historical averages.
Right.
You get up to 5,000 and the numbers start to move. Look, we've talked about this at length, and we also talked about how the guys at silverwars.org have done a good job at showing how much silver is needed in the military industrial complex, who has had vested interest in perpetuating war. And in order to do that, you need to have silver to make high-tech weapons. And it's interesting when you look at who's behind all of this. BlackRock owns the military industrial complex. BlackRock owns all of the military contractors that make all of the high-tech weapons. They also are the primary custodian with JP Morgan in the silver ETF, SLV. They're major holders in PSLV. They have their fingers in the pie of not only the silver market, which is used certainly to build these high-tech weapons, but they also have their fingers in the pie of the military industrial complex, the companies that are making the weapons. So they suppress the price of silver to make the weapons. They sell them all around the world. They blow up countries like the Ukraine, and then they come in and get the reconstruction contracts. BlackRock does. It's a let's build the weapons, blow up the country, come in and get the reconstruction contract. Sounds like a great deal, and then sell that country that's been rebuilt weapons to protect themselves moving forward. It's a crazy roundabout, but that's what's happening now. That works in an environment where the dollar has no challengers. That works in an environment where the dollar and the U.S. government are respected. That works in an environment where we are not the most indebted country in the world with all sorts of problems at home. Not only with debt, but look what's happening in Los Angeles and in Dallas and in Austin. You have, again, more insurrection. And I don't know, the idea here is that the biggest money in the world has been accumulating gold and silver and taking possession of it.
That's the big part. That's the big part.
Different. No one's ever taken possession quite the way that we're seeing right now. And that is the delineation between the ability to suppress the paper price and not, because you can suppress the price if no one ever stands for delivery just by writing and creating money.